So, Jack, whenever you're ready.
I'd like you to come out here and fix my screen for me, please.
Okay. I'm also technical for it.
Hi guys, this is about the third time we've done this. So it's between each testing, we're changing things around, and so hopefully this is going to be the last test session we do. We run into different problems each time. So give me just a second and let her get my screen squared away here. When I go to Zoom, I'm losing. I can't see the clip. I can't see the clip now. There it is.
First of all, you have to answer. Now you're on.
Okay. Am I going to have to live with the screen now?
All right. Now you should be fine.
All right. Ed, wave your arm if you can hear me. Okay. All right. George beat you to it. Ed was a little slow on that. So
go ahead and talk.
This is a. I was going to tell you guys we've done this testing several times with a live audience, and we've done a lot of testing. We tested this thing earlier for about an hour, and we didn't run into this problem that we just had. So anyway, I've been demonstrating for about eight years or a little bit better, and I demonstrated in I think 2018 at the Florida Symposium. I'm slated again to demonstrate this coming year. Hope you guys come see me. And I think that's what I said the last time I came to see you guys was I was fixed to demonstrate in 18. Anyway, we're gonna do a holoform here in just a second, and we'll get started. I wanted to tell you guys a joke. I always tell a joke when I get started, so I'll tell you a joke. This city slicker is riding out in the country, and he sees this rancher hanging out by his fence looking over his livestock, and he stops and walks up to him, and he says, "Hey," he says, "how come that cow doesn't have any horns?" He said, "I thought cows had horns." And the rancher says, "Well, son, there's a lot of reasons why cows don't have horns." He said, "The first reason is they might be a breed like an Angus that doesn't have horns." He said, "The second reason is they might be a breed that has horns, but when they're calved," he said, "the first thing we do is put a branding iron right where the horns grow so that they don't ever grow any horns." He says, "Or if they do grow horns," he said, "we might cut them off because they're dangerous, but it's like cutting a fingernail. It doesn't hurt them at all. But the reason that cow doesn't have any horns is because that's a horse." Nobody laughed. That fell flat. Okay, I'll move on with my demo. Let me get started here.
They're all muted. They can't hear you. You can't hear them. They laughed.
I can't hear it. They laughed anyway? Okay.
Yes.
So here's what we're going to be turning. All these coliforms that I'm going to show you are between about 5 and 6 inches tall. The reason is because it's convenient for the type of wood I get. Most of them are turned from kiln dried wood. Some of them are turned from just dried wood that I had around here. I started turning these specifically because I wanted a canvas to do my painting and coloring on. So let's see. You can see the far left one doesn't show very well, but it's black and brown, so it doesn't show up. The center one's a little shorter. The right one is ash that's blue in color with some liming in it. There's if you can see it, there's the black one with a lot of brown grain in it. A lot of my stuff, like this particular piece here, is a piece of citrus wood that I actually bleached to get those type of colors out of and colored it. There's some shots of some of them you've already seen. The one on the left is called the Island. Some of you guys, if you saw me at the Florida Symposium a few years back, I did a little piece like this and I colored it. If you're interested in how that coloring is done, I have a YouTube channel that's got one video up on it. It's that video. And the reason it's there is because, excuse me, I ran short of time for a club demonstration I was doing live, and I shot some video and put it up to show them how it was going to be finished. If you go to YouTube and you type in wood turning with Jack, you can watch that video. So, all right, let's go to this camera here. So we're going to start off with this particular piece of wood here. This is 3 by 7. One of the reasons I use it this particular size is I was able to buy it in 3 by 3 by 14, and it just turned out to be a really good size to make coliforms out of. So that's what we're going to start with. And to start off, I'll tell you roughly what we're going to do. I've already knocked the corners off this piece here. Mainly I did that because I wasn't sure if it was ash or maple or sycamore. So I knocked the corners off to see what it was, and it is maple. We're going to start off, we got it between centers. We're going to put a tenon on this end. We're going to take it down a little bit more. We're going to put a tenon on this end here. I want you guys to know you can't see me, but I have on safety glasses. If this would permit me, because I don't have good circulation, I'm not running a dust extractor system here because it makes so much noise. So if the little fan I've got that's trying to push the dust away from me works, I won't have to wear a respirator. If it doesn't work, I may have to actually put a respirator on it. I don't know what that'll do to my audio, but we'll give it a try. So you can see I've got my safety glasses on. I've got my shield here that I'm going to wear. I probably won't wear it when I dig around to hollowing. I will wear it when I'm taking the corners off this piece because it slings it everywhere. I tell people this when I do demonstrations because I'm a lot clearer to understand without a mask on. So we got this between centers. Let's knock some corners off of it. We're going to start off with a spindle roughing gouge. The name should tell you everything you need to know. It's used when the grain orientation runs this way in a spindle orientation, an end grain format. If you have grain running in a side grain format like a bowl, don't use this particular tool. It doesn't have the strength down here, and it will break and has broken. So let's see if we can get started here. Let's see if I can give you a little bit better picture here. There. I got the tool on the wrist. I got the handle in my hip right here. I come up, I find my bevel. I lower, raise the handle up till it starts to cut. I move my whole body all the way down. If I hold the tool like this, guys, and I do this, you're going to see this rough cut on it where it's tearing the grain.
Jack,
If I hold my handle, yes. Somebody asked me.
Can you turn the end stock camera around to see your body? Because right now we can't see your body.
I can. There, how's that? So here's the handle, come into my body. I'm moving my whole body, guys. Give me a second here. Whole body gets moved. If I come back and I start the tool like this and come down, start the tool like this and come down, you're going to see a lot smoother cut. because you end up, instead of making a square on grain cut, I'm making more of a shear cut. Whereas it tore down here, it's nice and square there. So let me just finish this up real quick. That's good with that. When I started out, I chose this end of my blank to be the top of my holoform because I've got a little bit of ambrosia or mineral stain or something right there. I don't see any bug holes, so it's a little mineral stain right here. I wanted it to go away, so I put it at the bottom. So this is going to be my top. I'm going to square the end of it off here real quick. Got a bowl gouge, 5/8 bowl gouge. We'll come right across the end here. Do a push cut. You guys see this here? Nice clean little push cut. This is a marker that I use for making all my tenons. If you'll notice, I'll lay the pencil down. I know I've got picture in picture.
We can't see what you're working on.
There, okay. So this has got various holes in here for my different chucks. This is for my smaller chuck, my next larger chuck, my large chuck that I do my coring on. This is my Nova chuck over here. These are all big marks, my Nova chuck, and I've got a notch in it here for some other things. So all I do to get my correct tenon size is I put this right here, just like that, and I put my pencil in the hole I want. So up here like that, pencil goes in the hole. I have a mark on the end of the piece down here. Show you again, just like that, done, mark on it.
Great idea.
Yeah, the AAW paid me $35 for that idea. You'll see it coming out. All right, so now I'm going to cut this tenon. It's called a catch, guys. And I'm going to have a lot of them tonight. That's good. Whatever reason. If you don't want to get them, turn your tool all the way up like this and start it in here like that. And then as you start, I don't know why I'm getting so much vibration here. There we go. That helped. I still got a lot. All right, I just cut to my line. Reposition my tool rest. I'll show you this tool here. This is a tool that I made from a 1/4-inch parting tool. I made it into a scraper. This angle here fits the jaws of my Vic Mark chuck. So when I come in here like this with this tool into this end, when I come in here like this on this end, it's going to make the perfect tenon for my chuck. Now, I recently discovered that since this tool gets used this way and this way, let me change you to here. Since this tool gets used this way and this way to cut a tendon, at the very, very tip of it gets dull first because it's getting used twice. So I found that I actually get a better fit on my chuck if I come back with a with a bowl or with a spindle gouge and catch it right here in this corner and just make a little cut like that. All right. Got started there. Change this out. You guys, if you have any questions, if you unmute yourself and you just yell my name and just stop and give me a second, because it'll take me just a moment to look up and see who's talking to me. I'll answer your questions as I go. Otherwise, I'm kind of sitting here talking to myself, and I don't even know you guys are out there. So every now and then when I get a catch.
Sometimes I slip into the garage and tell him things.
Yeah, well, that's good.
While
I'm doing this, I'll tell you guys.
Jack, there was somebody who said,
doing this.
Jack.
I'm sorry.
Somebody was saying something.
Yes. Somebody have a question?
No, I said we is here.
I was going to tell you, we got started doing this, I don't know, 4 or 5 weeks ago, and Rudy Lopez, who's a good friend of mine, wanted to get started in it. My wife is the IT person, and you guys can thank her for getting all this done. She got all this mess going on, and she's been helping Rudy. And Rudy called me the other night and said, "Hey, I did my first remote demo." And I went, "Yeah, how'd it go?" And he said, "Well, I don't know." He said, "I looked up, and one of the people on the thing was laying in bed drinking a beer, watching TV and watching me." I said, "Yeah, you did perfect." So I had a question. How many of you guys are wearing your fuzzy slippers? If you're wearing your fuzzy slippers, wave your hand so I'll know. I got one. I got two fuzzy slippers. Okay, so we turn this thing around. Guys, these little center points right here, you can't see it. Let me slide it up. These little center points that come in here, when you flip something around, if it doesn't run perfectly true, it'll pull your piece off. And what'll happen is when you slide your tailstock back away, you had it running true, and you slide your tailstock back out of the way, and it quits running true again. So that's what I was just doing. I just took the little center piece out. I'll come up again, and I can feel it. And now my center is in the center, even though this is not running true. You hear it? Hear it? So it didn't chuck up perfectly true. That's okay. We'll get to that in a minute. Actually, we might as well go ahead and do it now. All right, now we're running true again. We're going to put a tenon on this end the same as we did on the other end.
Can we see that from the end stock?
No, because this end grain doesn't want to cut right. I don't want anybody to see how bad a job I'm doing here. This end grain is hard. Okay, guys, so maybe I didn't pick the best piece to start with here. That don't make it fun when it's hollowed. Okay, I'm basically doing the same thing that I did earlier. I'm marking it. Done with that. Gonna cut another tenon on it. Hopefully, if I can get the tool to. Let me try a different tool.
If it's going to mess up, it's going to be when someone's watching.
Yeah, I know. Well, I sharpened these tools. There's my problem. I sharpened these tools right before I came on, and I think yeah, I'll tell you about the very first demo I did for a club other than my own club. See, it's chattering and tearing. Let's see if I just think it can run a little bit better. The very first club that I did when I went away somewhere and did for another club, and the day before I practiced a little bit. I sharpened all my tools, and I run. If you'll see, I run 3 bevels on here. I run a micro bevel here and a secondary bevel, and then I take the heel off. And I got there, and I carried some club members with me because my first time away, I needed some support. So if I messed up, everybody could tell me, help me prime my beer or whatever. So I got up to turning, and I noticed that my tool didn't feel real sharp. It wasn't cutting well at all. So I swapped bowl gouges like I just did, and it still wasn't cutting very well. So I managed to get through this demo, okay, and I'm riding home with 3 of my friends, and I said, well, how did it go? And one of them said, I don't know why it's doing this, guys. I said, he said, I don't think your tool was very sharp. And I said, I just sharpened it. When I got home, I started looking at it. I had the sharpest secondary bevel in the state of Florida because I hadn't sharpened the end of my tool. I had sharpened that secondary bevel. So I ended up with a dull tool, but I pulled it off anyway, and I'll pull this one off too. All right, so I'm gonna make this tenon here, and we're gonna move on. All right, so this blank is 7.5 or just over 7 inches long, 7.25 inches long, and I know that I want my end piece because I've turned it enough to be about 6.5 inches. So that means I'm gonna come back off of here about right here. That's gonna be my part line. So that's where I'm gonna actually part this thing off, and I'll get to that in a minute. So let's go ahead and put a mark on it. You guys, you might notice I have my tailstock up here holding this as I'm working on it. Whenever you're doing anything and you have the opportunity to use the tailstock, you should. So now I've got my piece defined. It's going to be my top. It's going to be my bottom. This is going to be the plug that I'm going to put into it later. So I want a curve that's going to go something like this. It's going to have a shoulder in it, and it's going to come in like this. That shoulder right here should be about 1/3 the way from the top to have a really attractive piece. Just the golden rule, I just use thirds because it's much easier. So somewhere right about here is where I want the widest of my pieces. Now, don't have it completely round, but we can work. So I'm going to start tapering this down this way and tapering it down this way. On this end, I'm going to make a taper in it like this that's going to go and end inside where these jaws are. So give me a second and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So here's my piece. Here's my tenon. Here's my jaws, okay? When I start tapering this, I want to taper it where I miss this corner right here and I end up like this. That way I'm going to get the full use of my piece of wood all the way to the very end. And this is also going to be a line that I'm going to use later when I drill it out. So just for your information, I know from the past that I want this part right here about 3/4 of an inch, because that works out well for my sizing, and I want my foot down here about 1.5 inches, because I'm gonna put a 1-inch hole in it, and that's gonna give me, by the time I finish it up, that's gonna give me about 1/8 of an inch on the outside of my foot to where the plug is. So now we're just gonna take some wood off here. I'll get started. If you have to do, if you're making a holoform and you have to do tapering, tapering's kind of hard to do. You end up with high spots and low spots. I found that if you kind of turn your tool rest a little bit, and you start with a cut like this, and you come back a little bit further and cut again, come back a little bit further and cut again, a little bit further and cut again, you start getting the taper you want. Now, I'm leaving that right there as a safety thing. And I just keep working back. I'll go ahead and cut that off. Guys, I apologize. I'm not having my best night tonight. But
Why apologize? You're only human.
you know, I don't know what the problem is. You know, I do about 8 or 10 demos a year. Well, I did do about 8 or 10 demos a year. And this is the first time I've had this problem. So, but I never try and hide problems when I have them. I always try and discuss what's causing them. Unfortunately, I don't know what's causing this one. So if I did, I'd tell you guys about it. I'd like to blame it on the wood. That's what all the other demonstrators tell me to do, but I don't think it's the wood. Don't take this completely apart with your tailstock there, because if you do, it's going to pinch the tool and tear it up. All right, let's go back to where we were at. Here we go. We're going to try this again. This end, I wanted about right there. So I've got a mark on it. All right, let's see if we can get this a little bit better. All right, let's see. I'm using this bolt gouge as a scraper because I'm not doing a very good job of using it as a bolt gouge. All right, come work on this end. Let's see what we look like. And I got some tool marks in it, but it's not too bad. I can live with it. Now I need to bring this in again where it's going to miss the inside of those jaws. Be careful, guys, and don't let your tool get crowded up in a spot like this with waste wood in the way, because if that wing hits the other part, I can tell you about that catch. It's pretty horrific. All right. Let's see if we can take that out a little bit right there. Guys, excuse me a minute. I'm gonna sharpen this tool. See if that helps. Because nothing else seems to be helping.
Why don't you put us on your end stock video so we can see you sharpen?
Done.
Oh, never mind.
Because I'm done. All right, let's see if I can correct some of this mess that I got going on here. But it is cutting a lot better. You guys have any questions? I didn't hear anybody ask anything. All right.
Could you put the picture in picture back?
It's wrong way. How's that? You see it? All right, so that's roughly my shape. I didn't do a very good job of it. We checked my diameter of my end. I got a little bit less than 1.5 inches, so I'm good there. So now we're ready to start our hollowing. And I got the idea from these from another friend of mine who was making something similar. And he was hollowing them from this end. And the first couple of them I did hollow them from this end. And I found out that it was extremely difficult. And I realized then when I picked one of his up that most of what he was doing from this end was drilling it. He wasn't really hollowing it. So what I found in the process of doing this was that if you drill them and you don't do some hollowing, they don't feel right. Everybody would know immediately that the weight on it was wrong, but also in addition to the weight, the vibration didn't feel correct. So if you stop and think about it, you pick up an electric guitar and it weighs the same thing as an acoustic guitar, but they don't feel the same at all. They're totally different. So I found that when I hollowed these things completely, they felt a lot better. And I like the feel of them. I like to hold them a lot more than I did if I cheated and I just drilled them. So I hollow them. I bought one of these guys. I found it on Amazon. It was about $35. Number 2 Morse taper, 1-inch drill, high-speed steel, long enough to go through. So, and this is what I use for my initial cut before I begin to hollow. Now, back to my picture here. When I
Would
go
you
to
take
drill
off
this out here,
Take off the end stock camera, please. There you go.
when I go to drill these out, okay, my drill comes in here like this. The question is, where do I stop it? I found that this line right here where these chuck jaws go across here, if I stop the tip of that just short, if I touch it, I'm okay. If I go just a little beyond it, I've gone too much. If I stop it somewhere between a quarter's too much, 1/8 of an inch is about right. So if I get my drill tip right down there about 1/8 of an inch from this imaginary line, when I finish building this shoulder, and then I come in here and I hollow this from this side, and then I hollow this from this side, these lines merge really well together. You can't get your finger in it because there's only going to be a 3/8 hole in this end, but you can look down in it. And everybody knows wood turners, the first thing they're going to do is try to stick their finger in it and look down in the hole. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to look at this piece right here. We're going to put this about 1/8 of an inch. Take this tape off so I can redo it. Put this about 1/8 of an inch and say the tape needs to go about right there. About right there. Okay. A little too much. Okay. So we're going to hollow this.
Just, I don't know if it's an artifact, Jack. I don't know if it's an artifact of the camera, but it looked like your tape was going to make the drill bit go far too deep.
Good. Well, let's take a check. It says 5.5 inches, and this tape says 5.5 inches. Nope.
Okay, so it was just an artifact of the camera.
We're going to run this about 300 to 400 RPMs, somewhere like that. Make sure it sets into your tailstock good. You're going to need to make cuts. When you first start, it clears really well. Then it stops clearing. You're going to need to pull it out, clean it. This is an extremely hard piece of maple. I can tell you guys that. Because I drilled one out yesterday and it drilled really, really easy. Now, as you're drilling somewhere along the line, this thing's probably going to want to start squealing on you.
Do you ever use compressed air to keep that hole cleaned out as you drill?
You know, if you just pull it out, it'll clean itself pretty quick. I do use compressed air when I go to this I'm fixing to put in here if you heard it squeal. This is just a little mineral oil and paraffin wax. And I'm just going to put a little up in this hole. And it'll make that bit run a little cooler and cut a little better. So yeah, you can blow air in it. That'll also help cool it, because if you get this piece of wood too hot, it'll crack, even though it's kiln dried. And you also run the chance that you'll get a drill bit stuck in it. I've never gotten a drill bit stuck in it, but I've seen it happen.
And when I'm drilling a hole deep like that, I just keep forcing air down inside as I drill, and it clears itself. Yeah,
you can do that. And they make a drill called a gun drill. You can find them on YouTube. It's a real funny little drill. It's got a hole in the middle of it. They use it for drilling long, straight holes in gun barrels. They have a carbide tip on the end of them. You can find one refurbished on eBay for about 40 or 50 bucks. You hook an air hose up to it, and it blows right down the middle and blows it out the whole time, and it makes an absolutely perfect cut. It goes straight. The grain doesn't catch it and try and move it around.
And we use them.
I'm sorry, somebody was talking and got lost. Somebody was saying they used them.
We use them in Dan Hoffman's shop.
Yeah. I'm glad some of you guys from the Wednesday night group got on here.
Thanks for the invite.
Yeah. This is not my most stellar performance here, but we're going to get through it. All right, there we are. That's where we want to be. One thing about it, nobody that's ever turned wood has not gotten a catch or had a problem. So it's just an experience you're going to go through. And if you let that stop you from demonstrating, you'll never get in front of a group of people. All right, so we got that hole in it. Now we can do some hollowing. Now I'm not going to hollow this thing completely, but I'm going to show you how I hollow it. The reason I'm not going to hollow it completely is because everybody that hollows knows it's a long process. You got to go slow. It takes a while. This is a Trent Bosch hollowing system. I like it because that's how fast it sets up. I mean, it's just real quick to set up. I've got this one. There it is. I need to change the tips on it. I start off with a curved tip so that I can get in this corner. And then I go back to the straight blade. So I'll start with this one. Let me turn this off. You know, guys, if you guys want a different view, you know, all you got to do is tell me as you're going along. I really like this hollowing system. I usually don't even put a handle on it unless I'm going in deeper than one of these. So, of course, this piece of wood's so hard, I may get some chatter out of it. I'm going to drop in and start hollowing about right here because I'm going to use part of this shoulder to cut a relief to put a mortise and tendon joint when I put the bottom back in it. So, run somewhere around that speed. Start your hollowing. Homemade chip remover. Coat hanger with a piece of wire on it. Works really, really well. A compressor works better. But I didn't want to start a compressor up because then you guys have to listen to it run. Pull it out. This is my feeler gauge that I start with to check my wall thickness. Slides in here just like that. You can see right now, I got a little gap in there, probably 2 millimeter gap there. So right now I've got a wall thickness of about like that. Well, excuse me, about like that right here. So I need to open up a little bit more here and a little bit more past that. When you're hollowing, if you feel for it, you can actually feel where that ends. And you don't have to measure often after you've done a few of them. I know that a couple of you guys have these hollowing systems, so you know they're pretty easy to use. And I'm hollowed up to about here. Let's see how it looks. You guys see that gap I've got right there? I'm going to put something underneath it here. How about that? Does that show it? So I've got about a probably 3 millimeter gap now. So I Probably got a wall thickness of 1/8 of an inch or so. It starts about right there, and I got it pretty good. Oh, I got thin right there. So I'm going to walk that right on down through this piece all the way to the end. And the only thing you got to remember, when you get down up somewhere right in here, you probably want to change this hollowing tool out for a straight hollowing tool. When you go to a straight hollowing tool, and I'll show you this, it makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah, what's the name of that hollowing system again?
Trent Bosch makes this hollowing system. And the biggest advantage of it, and I've got three different hollowing systems around here. I've got a Cobra system that I use on big stuff because it's got a 1-inch boring bar on it, and it'll go in there 14, 16 inches without a problem. This one will not do that. And Trent Bosch's bigger system, the size up from this, won't do that. It won't go that deep. But for fast, small work like this, this is, I think, the best system around. When you get to this, it's a lot easier to use because you see this coming in here. I can feel that sidewall, and I know I've got to go this way, right in line with that wall thickness. So I can come up in here when that bit starts cutting, and I can just push that piece right on up through there. Come to the center, take some of that center waste out, come back to that sidewall. And if I have a lump in it here, if I'm going along and the inside of it looks like this and it comes down and it's got a lump like that and it goes like that, when this cutter bit gets here, I'll be able to feel that because it's going to walk this whole arm this way. See if you can see that, because I do have one. So I'm coming right along that sidewall, and right there, see that? See that jump up? I know that I've lost my wall thickness right there. So I can play with it like that. I don't stick my fingers in things that turn. So now I'm hollowed up to about here. It gets a little thicker, but I got a little thin. So I'm good to right there. I'm hollowed to about here. I've got another shoulder about right there. So I can walk this on down. Does anybody want to see this boring part of this, or can we move on?
I think we can move on.
Okay, great.
Agreed. Move on.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
I thought you guys were all out there asleep. See, that's the problem when you put on those fuzzy slippers. And I'm not sure all of you guys got iced tea in your drinking glass either. All right. So let's take this piece off. I'm going to take this off, so I'm going to hollow it later and save it. I'm not going to waste it. And I'm going to go to this piece right here, which is exactly like that piece I just took off, except this is sycamore instead of, and it was a whole lot easier to work with. I made some marks here where it came out of my #1 jaws. I marked my jaws like this. You see that black line right there? So I don't have to keep looking for that little teeny one right down there. I'm gonna see if I can get it to run true. This one's completely hollowed, but it doesn't have a hole in the end. I'm gonna show you guys how to do that. Oh, hello, Mr. Mosquito.
Jack, somebody asked about the sticker on your chuck. If you just want to turn your chuck a little bit and show folks.
There's a sticker with my name on it right there, but you see,
and your phone number.
I'll take that's from the Florida Symposium. You don't put your name on everything else, somebody ends up owning it. I put a little black magic marker here, and it's really simple. It really is. It really is just black magic marker, and you just do this on your #1 chuck every now and then. It makes it a lot easier when you go to rechuck things to find it, because those little numbers are hard to read. So I think it's running fairly true. Turn it here. Yeah, not bad at all. We'll tighten it back up. All right. So guys, let me show you the end of this real quick. See, I've got just a square lip here where I went in and I started hollowing it on the inside. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to cut a mortise to put a tenon in on my bottom, and that mortise needs to be perfectly square. So let me find a tool rest here. So I'm going to come in with this tool right here. Hang on. I'm going to come in with this tool right here, which is a square negative rate scraper. And I'm going to hold this tool perfectly, hopefully perfectly parallel with my bedways and make me a nice little groove right here, about 1/8 of an inch this way and about 1/8 of an inch in. That's going to give me my my mortise for my tenon. Let me go back over here and you can hopefully watch me do this. About 1/8 of an inch.
Nope,
It's
we're going to see the back of your head.
Okay, let's go to a different.
At least you wash behind your ears.
Yeah, I did. Hey, I comb my hair too, and I don't have on fuzzy slippers. I'm not going to name any. I had some problems early on. Things have calmed down now. I'm not going to name any names, but there's a professional turner that's a really good friend of mine was telling me he went to Georgia. We were talking about screw ups at demos, and he went up to Georgia to do a demo for a club, and he had this piece of wood mounted up, and he said he got into his demo about 10 minutes, and it was on a faceplate, and he tore it off the faceplate. He got a catch and said wood had some spalt in it, so it was probably a little bit soft. And says he tore it right off the faceplate. It went spinning across the floor, and he went and grabbed it, put the faceplate back on it, went back to doing his demo. He tore it off a second time. Said he knew he wasn't having a really good night, so he put it back on the second time, and he said he was trying to find some solid wood to put it in, and all right, now you guys should be able to see. Now you can see right here that I've got a little square edge. I held this tool perfectly square, just like that, and I took my time and I worked that. It's about 1/8 of an inch by 1/8 of an inch. So it's hollowed. I got my recess here for my tenon, and I'm done. Back to my story. He knocked this thing off the second time, put it back on for the third time. He said when he came off the third time, he said he just didn't have anything left to put faceplate back on. It was the only piece of wood he carried. So he just said then, he said, hey, we're going to just have a talk demo. I'm going to tell you how I would do this if I didn't mess this thing up. So sometimes, guys, that happens. All right. So I've got this cut in it now. We're going to take this off. This piece is finished in the chuck. We're going to remove it. You guys okay with that, or you want a different view?
That's cool.
Okay. I can bring it out a little bit so you can see a little bit more. There. How's that? All right. Remember I cut that plug off earlier? Okay. Here's the plug for this one. Remember we cut a tenon on it. We parted it off. This is the part that came off that one. It's never been in the chuck, so I don't have to recenter it. What time
But
is
you
it?
cut the tenon the very, very first step, right?
I cut the tenon before I removed it, just like I did on the other one before I parted it off. Okay. What time is it?
It is 42 minutes after the hour.
Okay.
East Coast people, it's 8:42. For Central Time people, it's 7:42.
Smart Alex. Everybody needs a wingman. That's mine.
Well, I lived in Pensacola and it happened all the time. People would get the time wrong.
Okay, guys, I'm going to show you something. I don't know if I invented it, but it's worked really well for me. This is going to be my tenon here that's going to plug the bottom of this. I'm going to make it, it's going to fit on here. But then when I go to finish this out, I'm going to have some centering problems. So here's something I discovered. I'm going to have a 3/8 inch hole in the top of this when I'm done. That's what we're going to put for an opening in the top. This is a 3/8 inch drill bit. I'm going to put a hole just about that deep in the bottom of that. Actually, I need that on there. And you'll see why as we go along.
How deep is that?
About a 1/4 inch, probably a little too deep, but that's okay. What I'm going to do, I made it a little deeper than I want. I'm going to make sure that this part right here, let me change cameras back for you. There you go. I'm going to make sure, let me give you this one in here. There. I'm going to make sure that this will actually go all the way in there and it won't be part of my shoulder, okay? Now you guys notice I have a bowl gouge or a spindle gouge or something, and this is a bowl gouge in my hand. I'm fixing to make this tenon with it, and the reason I'm going to do that.
Hang on, Jack. The end stock camera completely obliterates the picture-in-picture of the overhead. So just slide the end stock camera over.
No, let's just get rid of it. Okay. So if I were to use a square scraper, and that's what I'm going to use in the end because I want this thing to be perfectly square to go back in here. But if I were to use this now and I miss my tenon size, I overshoot it, I've got to back all the way down here and start over again. So I'm not going to do that. You guys ever seen me make tenons before at any demos? I'm going to use this, and I'm going to make a tenon. It's bigger back here and smaller up there. So that if I miss it here, make it kind of cone shaped. If I miss it, I've only got to go in maybe another 1/8 of an inch. Sorry, I bumped that camera there. All right. And I'm just going to slowly work up to this. I did this the other night and hit it perfect. I'm not going to be that lucky, but it's close. This piece of wood, by the way, is cutting a lot better than that other piece of wood. You guys buy that? Can I blame it on the wood?
Most definitely.
Thank you. Hey, you guys could be sitting at home watching a rerun of Laverne and Shirley, you know.
No, thank you.
How about the Golden Girls?
Wagon Train.
Hey, I'd watch Wagon Train. Be careful. I'm a Western watcher.
Gunsmoke.
There you go. Gunsmoke comes on every day at 1 o'clock here. You know, I can have lunch, eat a sandwich, catch Matt shooting somebody, and it's a good day. Especially if after that I get to go take a nap. Okay, guys, I'm within a 1/16 of an inch here. I'll come back here and take some more back here. If you get in a hurry here, I'm sorry. Somebody said something. I can look up and see all you guys, by the way, or some of you anyway.
If you get in a hurry, what?
You will overshoot it, and when you overshoot it, you can't put this wood back on. There are some ways to fix it if you overshoot it, guys. If you overshoot it just a little bit, you can take some paper towel and wrap around it, put some super glue on it when you stuff it all together, take up the slack. If you do this right, when you get finished, you cannot even see this joint. If you do it wrong, you'll end up decorating the joint by making a groove out of it, which I usually do anyway. So, because I put 2 grooves in the bottom of stuff. There you go. Guys see that? Starting to fit right there. It just slipped on. So now what I can do, raise my tool up a little bit. Now I can go to my scraper.
No.
That'll work. All right. If you want the grain to match, and you can make it match perfectly, you need to look for something like this, a little defect. Can you guys see that right there? I'll zoom in just a little bit for you. See it right there? That little stain or whatever it is. You're going to come down here and hunt for it right here. I'm going to guess it's there. It's going to go like that. I'm thinking it's right just like that is where that piece goes. This right here matches this right here. This flat spot matches that. So that's going to go there. That's where that goes. Go ahead and mark it. I do this even though I'm going to color these pieces when I'm done. All right. Are you guys going to the Florida Symposium if it actually works next year? If we get to have it? Ed, are you going to make it?
Are you talking about the Florida Symposium?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I've been a couple of years. I missed it last year, but yeah, I expect I will.
I saw you. I saw you. Well, you came to a couple of my demos that year I had. Okay.
George
Guys,
says he will.
Okay. Normally when I do this, I prefer to use regular old tight bond and set it on here and just let it sit because super glue is kind of brittle sometimes. We're going to super glue tonight so we can move on. I'm going to put some here. You notice I put that tile underneath so that I don't get it on my lathe. I'm going to put some here. Yeah, maybe I better leave that there. I'm going to line up my 2 marks. Bring the tailstock up. Tighten it a little bit. Now, I recommend that when you get it here, you let it sit. Don't want to tighten it too tight. If you tighten it too tight down here, I found out sometimes you push this wood around And then when you loosen this pressure back off with your tailstock, your part kind of cocks a little bit. So you want to just put some pressure on it, let it sit. We're going to put a little accelerator on it, but I don't really like doing it this way because sometimes the accelerator also makes it dry kind of funny. But that's what we have to work with when we work fast. So there we go. We're going to give that a minute. I have several racing stripes down my shield over the time from turning it on too quick. So we're going to let it sit there just a minute. Does anybody have any questions so far while that sets up? Before I turn it back on?
I'll unmute everyone for just a moment. So this is the 7th inning stretch, I guess.
We're getting close.
All right.
Anybody have questions? You guys are just not real gassy tonight.
So the recess was like a quarter of an inch?
No, I didn't go that deep. I went probably, my actual preferred is to go about 3/16. A quarter's too deep. An eighth is probably just a little bit too shallow. So 3/16 is probably perfect, which is what, 4 millimeters? Call it 4 millimeters. But this one's probably just a tad over an eighth. Now, I'm going to change cameras again. What I'm going to do here so this thing doesn't sling super glue on me in case it's not completely taut is I'm going to put this right here. I don't want to take a super glue bath. But if it's also not dry, it's not going to stay together. It's going to come apart here in a minute. So, all right. Now we're going to finish this end out. See if I can. All right. We're going to form the top of this. Mask on.
I bet the next time you pick a piece of sycamore to start with.
Yeah. Sometimes you use what you have, guys. Because this is certainly cutting a lot better. You got to admit that. A little bit fat. Close. There's my 3/4 inch. Square it up a little bit. All right. Got a little tool mark right there. See if I got something to sand it with right here. One thing about doing these remotes is that you can actually sand without causing problems with everybody. I'll take this tool mark out right here. This is some 180. So you can tell it wasn't much of a tool mark. Came right out. Unlike the piece of maple that I've got. All right, that looks pretty good. I like to remeasure this, make sure I got it right. Yeah. I like to make my opening in my top kind of attractive. You got to be real careful when you do this. Helps if you get the lathe turning the right way. If you guys might have noticed that when I pull that tailstock away, see it's got a little wobble to it. See it right there? See that in the picture?
Yeah.
Got it.
All right. I use that wing as a scraper right there because if I get on that edge, I'm going to get a catch.
Are you making it a bit concave there?
I am.
We could use that end view right about now.
Oops, excuse me.
Very nice.
There. That's that. See if I can get it.
Looks good.
Well, except we get the back of your head again when you.
Well, I'll move out the way if you just give me a minute. I got a little bit of a pencil mark right there. I just want to take that off. Guys, you want to when you do this, you want to go nice and easy, because if you go fast and you knock that last little piece of plug out down at the bottom of it, sometimes it's kind of hard to there it is right there. Sometimes it's kind of hard to get that little piece out again. All right. So let me show you what we've got here. Go to the overhead. So this is what we've got. You see, I drilled it. You can see I left a little drill mark in here, so you can see where the drill actually went to. And I've hollowed it like this all the way around. Now I've drilled it. I've got this little short shoulder right there. You see that? It's got a little shoulder right there on it. Of course, I didn't bevel this one in. So I've got that same thing going on down here. And most people wouldn't pay any attention to it, except for wood turners. If you go to sell these things, you don't have to be nearly as picky about all this mess, because nobody's going to notice it. So I've got this little 1/4-inch hollowing tool. Now you remember, guys, I just put a 3/8 of an inch hole in here. I now have a 1/4 shank hollowing tool. That gives me a 1/16 of an inch on each side of this cutter to get this thing in this hole. If you're going to mess one of these up, now's when you're going to mess it up. So maybe I got all my messes up early. All right.
Say, Jack, how is anybody going to know that that thing is smoother because you've done that?
Because you can actually, let me show you, Ed. Because right here, if you get that light right there, you'll see that sharp edge just inside there where those two, where I hollered it this way. I hollered it this way, and then I drilled a hole this way. There's a little sharp lip. And all I'm doing is just taking that lip off so that when you look in it, it looks like that wall thickness is the same all the way around. Now, the only people that are going to care are all your club buddies, because they're going to look at it and say, hey, you drill that, I can see that. If you take that little lip out, they can't tell it. Okay, so now all that's left to do on this is to, let me get you back to ground zero here. The only thing that's left to do on this is to do whatever coloring and everything you're going to do, and part it off. So let me show you a little video here while I change some things around. Here we go. You guys watch that for just a second. What I did is I took a piece and I burned it, and I really charred the heck out of it. And that's a stainless steel brush, and I've cleaned it up. I'm gonna let you look at that. I got to go find the piece. So I cleaned it up with that stainless steel brush, trying to open the grain up. That's a piece of this hard maple, and it didn't want to open up very good. I spun it up. I cleaned some of the wire brush marks off of it here. Got it a little smoother. And you can see now that it looks a lot better. The grain's kind of opened up on it. You can also see right there that the heat deformed it, put some cracks in it, which if you ever do any burning, you know that happens sometimes. If you heat it hot enough, it always happens.
Now you're doing liming wax.
Got a little liming wax down into it. Or work that liming wax in really good.
Neophyte question, what does liming wax do?
Liming wax is not really wax at all. It's some type of shellac base, or that's usually what it is, or some type of tung oil base, white pigment. And what you do is all you're doing is you're putting that white pigment down into the where I took my wire brush and opened it up. It's going down in the grain. And so I'm rubbing it all in the grain really, really well. And then I'm going to rub off the outside where you see in just a second. Excuse me. So you can actually take the liming wax and you can put different colors in it. Or you can make your own liming wax. You can get some colored pigment. If you guys are familiar with just plain old acrylic pigment, you can buy pastels online and put it in a shellac base. And there's what you get when you start rubbing it off.
You know, some of those embellishing creams that Jimmy Clue sells, Jack.
Yeah, I use a lot of Chromacraft products. They're out of Georgia. They sell some really, really high end. They've been they've been in the wood turning business for about 5 or 6 years, but they've been in the fishing lure business for 20 years. The fact is, they make the majority of paints and dyes and casting stuff that goes into the fishing world. So these guys are forming their own, and there's what you end up with. So that was just one of the ways that you can do it. You saw a bunch of the pictures in the beginning, and I showed you a bunch of other ways. That was quick and easy, and one of the reasons I did that is because it had a couple of flaws in it. It had some minor cracks in it to start with, so I knew it wasn't really going to dye well. If I wanted to dye, I would have used some 2-part wood bleach, and I would have bleached it out to bleach all the tannins out of it so that I got a good color on my dye. So that's that. That's and here's that piece right here. Okay. So imagine I've taken this piece, I dyed it, I've done whatever I wanted to, I finished it off, I put it back on. This is running fairly true, not exactly. And I'm going to show you how I part it off. Okay.
Jack, is that the same piece that you blackened?
Yeah, that's the piece you just watched the video of.
Did you put some blue on top of it?
No, it just looks blue because the way the light's hitting it. So it's black. So there's no blue in it. It's actually in, you know, I'm looking at it and it has more of a blue-gray cast to it. So I'm going to part this off. It's not running real true.
How would you eventually finish it? Would you spray it with lacquer?
Yeah, I'd put a little lacquer on it, but you know, I'm kind of a lacquer guy. Most people don't know it, but I've been in the automobile collision repair industry most of my life. So for a number of years, I was a painter. So I'm really familiar with all kinds of automotive type finishes, and I really prefer them because they're much, much more superior to the stuff you buy at Ace Hardware. So that's not to say I don't use a lot of death spray lacquer. I do. But if I'm really making an art piece, a piece that I want to sell high end at one of the galleries that I have some of my stuff at, I put a car finish on it because I know 10 years from now it's going to look just as good as it did when the person bought it.
Turn the upside of lacquer in a body shop is you can buff out a lot of your errors.
I'm sorry, I heard you say about lacquer in body shop.
Lacquer in a body shop, we could buff out a lot of our errors. Can't do that.
Absolutely. And you know, guys think lacquer is hard to deal with, but lacquer is one of the easiest things in the world to deal with. So,
Amen to that.
You mentioned the body shop, so if you do, I noticed a guy named, was it Bill, did some high-end paint work. Is Bill on there? Bill Donahue? Is he out there? He sent in a picture. Did he not get on?
He is not on, but he did submit the pictures with the nebula.
I know, I saw that. I was going to show him one of my pieces. This is one of those times when you don't want to get in a hurry. All right. I can't find what I'm looking for. Okay. Clean that one finger. Guys, always clean this hole out when I pull a chuck off because it's got dust in it. If I'm going to put something in it, and I'm going to put this in it, take that drill bit out. If you recall, we drilled a little small hole in the bottom of that recess. You guys remember that? And I told you about it. When I made that plug to go in the bottom of this piece, right down here, we drilled a little hole in it. This is a 3/8 inch rod. If I put it right through that 3/8 hole and I bring it up and I find that, look at there. Perfectly true. I left a little nub here on the end. I'm going to take, the center back out of my out of my live center. Take the little pointy thing out. So it's like that. Yeah.
Could you please zoom out your,
There. So I've got it out like that. I'm gonna put it back into my tailstock. And if I lined everything up right, this little piece right here, this little piece right here is gonna pull up into this part of my live center, just like that, okay? There you go, and it's gonna run true. Ran truer than when I had it on the thing. Now, that's not a lot of friction that's holding that's making it spin. I want to finish off this bottom, and I don't have a lot of pressure. And I can put a lot of pressure on right here because it's all right here, but it's not going to help. It's not going to keep it from spinning if I put too much pressure on my cutting tool. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take some tape, and I'm going to start it right here. I'm going to wrap a little of it around. It doesn't matter if it tears. That's going to give me a little bit more power to make this piece spin. And there we go. Can you guys see that, or you need a tailstock in?
you need to, there you go.
Just use that wing a little bit. That's I should have left my little thing on the end a little bit longer so I could get in there a little tighter. All right. So let me show you what we've got here. See, we got a little bit of a glue line right here. Got a little bit of glue line showing. I got a little die hanging over. I'm going to take this little pointy tool right here. Just a little three-sided pointy tool. This is a really inexpensive one. I think Cindy Drozda makes a nice one. I don't own a nice one. I own an inexpensive one. Guys, give me a second. I'm getting me some room here. All right. I'm going to take that and I'm going to hide that glue line. That glue line is right there. I'm going to take this tool right here and I'm going to just touch that glue line just like that. And I'm going to come and touch another line right there.
I'm afraid we're just seeing the back of your head.
Okay. I touched it right there with this tool, and I touched it right there with this tool. So I have these two lines. That's not.
The digital zoom is just blowing it out.
Okay. Well, all right. So there's what I ended up with. I've got a line here. I've got a line here. I'm going to sand that off because if I'd left it a little bit longer, I'd have been able to get my little small spindle gouge underneath it and cut it off, but I didn't. So I'm going to end up sanding it off. But you guys will see that this is part of the top here. And this part right here is part of the bottom. And I didn't really try to align that grain up, but it aligns pretty good. So
Jack, you've got that camera on digital zoom, and we couldn't see what you were pointing at.
Try again.
Okay.
Well, the light's blowing it out too. See, here's the line that went right on my glue joint. Here's my secondary line. I'm going to use that part between it to write my name and some other stuff. That's going to hide the fact that I got a pretty good grain alignment here. So I don't know why it didn't line a little better there. And I'll use my sander. I'll start with some 80 grit and I'll just sand this off right there. But it won't look like I sanded the whole bottom because I put a couple of grooves in it. So there's the finished piece. It's nice and light. You can hear it. Got a nice tone to it, good feel to it. That's pretty much it. That's all it takes.
How do you blacken the bottom?
I can blacken it when I sand it off. I can just take some dye and blacken it. I use a Q-tip. Just take your regular dye and Q-tip it around. Just stay off this edge because you don't want it to bleed back into your lining here. So, other questions?
I'm going to unmute everybody for just a second. Okay. Everyone who wants to be unmuted is unmuted.
Questions, guys?
Yeah, when you drill the last 3/8 inch hole, but you did the concave first.
Yeah.
Is there why you did that first rather than after you drill the hole?
Yeah, because if I drill my hole first, let me go back to a different camera here. If I drill my hole first, as I roll that tool, that spindle gouge into it, it's going to want to tear that grain because I would be cutting it uphill instead of downhill. I'm cutting back into the grain, and it would tear that grain right there. Now I could stick a piece of sandpaper in it, but I can just cut it first and then drill it, and I don't have that torn grain to deal with. So
okay.
And I don't know if you guys can see down in there. Let me see if I can get a little light down in there, and you can see. See, you don't see that ridge that you were talking about. That's actually dust in there. So there's no ridge in there. And that's it. That's why I stick that little gooseneck tool in there and work on that to get that out.
What kind of lacquer do you use to finish it out?
Well, here's my preferred. This is a Chromacraft product, and it's what I prefer to use. And I prefer to use it because I don't want to try to get close enough. You guys see right there what it says? UV
we can see
blockers.
it. Yeah.
Okay. If you use a lacquer that doesn't have UV blockers in it, and most all non-automotive lacquers don't have a UV blocker in it, when you do your colors, your pretty colors and your sweet gum and your colors in your box elder and everything, it looks so vibrant and pretty when you turn it and you paint it with lacquer and you come back 6 months later and it's faded. That's the UV wavelength of light that's fading the colors in that wood. I've got a piece of box elder here at the house that I turned 12 or 13 years ago. I put a UV blocker urethane. I didn't use a lacquer, but I used a UV blocker urethane I put on it, and it's still just as red as the day that I turned it 12 or 13 years ago. So if you want your colors to stay in there, you need to buy a product that has a UV blocker. Now, the disadvantage of this is it's $11 a can plus shipping, and it's hazardous, so they know you on the shipping. So if you want to, get some, make sure you get a club order up and order 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 cans. And if you want to do that, call them and tell them you're making your first club order, and you saw the product that I did in a demo, and they'll give you a discount. So, because I get a small discount on it. It's not a lot, but it's some. So they'll give you that. If you do a lot of lacquer, if you guys will hang on, I'll show you something else. I'll walk away.
I guess this is the other advantage of doing the demo from your garage is you've got all your stuff.
Hey, it's not a garage, it's a shop.
Oh, your studio. Excuse me, your studio.
Lee Scott says I'll get more for my products if I call it a studio. I said, calling my garage a shop is pushing it, but calling it a studio is really pushing it too much. This is an automotive lacquer finish, okay? Who's my automotive guy there? Somebody spoke up. Somebody knows about it. That's
it's been decades, but yeah.
Is it Gordon? Yeah. Okay. This is an automotive lacquer. You can go to any paint supply place that sells to your body shops locally. You can get it. I don't know what it'll cost you. I can tell you that it cost me about $35 a can. Okay, that's a quart. It's 32 ounces. You have to buy at least a quart of lacquer reducer to go with it. When you buy a high-end reducer for it, that's about another $35, and then you're going to have to spray it with a gun. You know, you can real quickly, you can end up with $100 worth of material. Now that'll do a lot of bowls and a lot of holoforms. This does have a UV blocker in it, so it'll do them very nicely. Whereas if you use 3 or 4 coats of the spray bomb stuff, which has been thinned and has a retarder in it to slow it down, you can use 2 coats of this. So it goes a lot further. But, you know, and the learning curve is not bad. I went to a Jacksonville club, an all-day thing, and I showed them how to spray lacquers. I used a color lacquer because clear lacquer is kind of hard to spray because you can't see it. So I taught them with a color lacquer to get them started. Anybody else have a question about that? Finishes?
I got a non-related question concerning your microphone you're using for pickup. What kind of microphone are you using?
That's just an LG mic that you can buy at Best Buy.
The Bluetooth?
It's got the little dongles on it for my ears. It's got a microphone built in. It's Bluetooth. It lets me move around the shop and talk to you guys and do that at the same time.
It's a Bluetooth that is connected to the computer he's using.
Right.
I'm just asking because it's working so well, and that's one of the big problems people have in their clubs is getting audio out, you know?
Yeah, and they have a bigger club. I watched a demo that Rudy did, I guess, last Wednesday or something. Rudy and I kind of watch each other's stuff and critique it for each other. And Rudy's problem is his ear canal is short and he can't put an earbud in. It won't stay. He has to have an over-the-ear thing. So he can't actually use this thing. And the system he was using, every time he put his mask on, he put his mask on like this, and it just like totally blew his whole sound out. And I don't know what that sounds like because all I can do is hear myself. But his was like unaudible. You just couldn't understand it when he put a mask on. So that's one of the problems we're fighting too.
With your mask on, or mask off, there's not much difference. It works very well.
So, well, thank you. So, other questions? Well, I want to share something with you guys. I feel wood chips all over. I noticed you guys had a turner named Bill Donahue that did some of the stuff that I've been doing for years and years and years. Tell Phil about this one, since he did make it on there.
Wow.
I don't know if you guys can see the colors and things in it. So let me try this other camera and make sure it better.
No, try the overhead. Try the overhead camera.
Yeah, it's not going to go that close. They're not going to be able to see it with the overhead.
Don't ding it.
Yeah. There, you can see the colors there. This is lacquer finish, guys. So.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Very nice.
I was going to share that with you. I thought the stuff he did was really, really, really nice. He did a good job on the finishes and stuff. Anything else, guys? Yeah, go ahead.
You still get depth? I haven't been able to find it. The depth lacquer.
The depth lacquer, Ace Hardware carries it. And
Okay, yeah.
I've got a can of it here somewhere.
Yeah, I used to get it at Lowe's, but they don't carry it anymore.
I had a can out here earlier today spraying something. If I want a fast, cheap lacquer on something, that's what I use, because it's like $7 a can or something. It's a lot cheaper. It's a little bit less. This has got 11 ounces in it, and I think the Def, this has got 11 ounces. I think the Def has like 9 ounces in it. But you know, I have to order this stuff and wait 3 or 4, 5 days to get it. So Ace Hardware is half mile from my house. I run out. I can never get it. I will tell you. My wife told me. I know why she's laughing. My wife started laughing because I've been home for about 6 weeks, like most of you guys. I was working in the body shop and we didn't have any work, so I took a voluntary furlough to come home. She told me the other day, she showed me my credit card bill, and it was like 15 trips to Ace Hardware and 2 or 3 trips to Home Depot, and that was it. That's the only place I've been in 6 weeks. So, but yeah, that's easy to get, and Ace Hardware does carry the DEF. If your Ace Hardware doesn't have it, you can go on their website and order it to the hardware store that's nearest you. Free, no delivery charge.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, sir. Other questions?
And what was the name of the company that got the lemming wax from?
Oh, that's that particular. You can get that from Chromacraft carries it. You can buy it from Craft Supply carries it. I don't know whether Packard, Woodcraft carries it. The product that I always use is I think called Lebanon. It's a UK company, but it's all the same stuff. Find whatever. Don't worry about name brand. Find whatever's convenient for you to buy. The name brand's not important there. So,
You hold the can up in front of the camera again?
yeah, yeah. I'll have to go get it. Give me just a second. This is the advantage of teaching from home. Camera way on this one. There you go.
Well, hang on a second. There you go.
They make it in white. They make it in black. They make a natural colored wax. It's a really, really good quality wax that I like to use when I wax pieces. I don't normally wax them though. I normally finish them in lacquer, buff them up and let them go. I don't put wax on them. That good enough? Everybody got it?
Got it. Thank you.
Get it right there.
We got it. Liberal.
All right. What else can I help you guys with tonight? I promised Ed about 3 years ago to do a demo for you guys because I was moving to Pensacola, and then my wife came home. She was working up there. We didn't move up there. So this is kind of fulfilling a 3-year-old promise. So, and I invited some other people to join us. Orlando has what they call a Wednesday night group, and I invited those guys to join us because they do a lot of Zoom stuff, and some other people I invited to join us. So I thank everyone for being here. I wish I hadn't had the problems I had in the beginning, but that just goes to show you. I'll tell you a real quick story before we get off here. When I first started doing demos, I went to a demo with Jimmy Clues, and he and I went out back and we're having lunch. It was a small demo. There was like 30 people there, and Jimmy went off by himself to eat, and I went over and started talking to him. He's a super nice guy, and I told him I was doing demos, but it always bothered me about making mistakes, and he kind of chuckled, and I said, "What's so funny?" And he says, if I get through a demo and I haven't made a mistake, he said, I'll make one on purpose because it makes everybody feel better. So just consider maybe I did that on purpose.
Well, we ought to feel real good then.
Yeah. You
Okay,
guys,
Jack, listen, let me thank you for doing this. We appreciate it. And you're certainly right. For you guys that don't know, Jack is doing this for free, so give him a hand.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right. So if there are no more questions, I'm going to end the meeting, and it'll stop the recording for Jack, and you know how to follow up with him if you need anything else.
Thanks a lot, Steph. We appreciate technical help.
You're welcome. All right. Good night, you guys.
Thanks, everybody.